Hi everyone! So today we're going to talk about CodeIgniter model selecting specific data. Okay, so before we dig into our code, let's start with our sample HTML templates. Okay, so this is the last output that we have in our previous video, which talks about selecting all data. So at this particular part, yung pag-uusapan naman natin is to select a specific data. Okay? So every time we click view, dapat pag-display yung specific post only. Kagaya dito. If we're going to select that one, then ito yung magdi-display niya. Okay? So if ever I select or click other button, dapat yung magdi-display nating output is yung based on that particular post. So magkakaroon ng dynamic display of a specific post. Okay? Now let's start with our our controller part. Okay, so in our controller we have this method that we call view. Okay, so in our view we try to load lang muna yung templates natin for the header at saka yung footer. Then of course yung view file natin. Okay, so let's try to check out yung template files natin. So ito yung makikita natin. So here I use H3 for the title part. And I use also black quote for the content part. Okay? If we're going to see that, of course, ito yung output. Ito yung H3, ito naman yung black quote. Okay, guys? Now, let's proceed to our model. So, in our model, we're going to update or add new method in this particular code. So, we created a getPost method, which having a parameter of ID, okay, which is the primary key. Then I have here a query. So I used here a query builder class, which is the getWhere, wherein the first parameter is the table name. Then the second parameter is a where clause that utilize a associative array. So the index is the field name. Then yung value will be the value that we're about to compare for our where clause. Okay? Then after that, I tried to call the row method to retrieve the actual result coming from the database. Okay? Now let's try to talk more on details about on how to create queries or mga ways on creating queries. Okay, so two ways of selecting specific data. So let's start with the query basic. So in this part, we use yung query function wherein we try to pass a query string like select all from my table where ID equals 15. Okay, just a note, you need to escape the data or use the query binding instead to provide a safer query. Okay, so the other way is using yung query builder class, which is the getWhere method. So this method is identical to the get method, except it permits you to add a where clause in the second parameter. So having this example, of course, yung first parameter is the table name. Then the second parameter is the where clause, wherein we utilize a associative array, which is the index is the field name, and the value that we are about to compare will be the value of the array. Okay, then this particular method will produce this kind of SQL string, which is select all from my table where ID equals to 15. Okay, note, all values are escaped automatically, producing safer query. Okay guys, so I encourage you guys to utilize yung mga query builder class natin, comparing kasi sa query function, automatic na kasi yung pag-escape niya to provide safer queries. But if you still intend to use yung query function, so it's up to you na lang. Basta make sure that you are escaping all the data before you process it on making SQL query. Okay? Okay. Now let's try to talk about yung row method. So generating query results. So the row method, let's start with that one. Actually, there are two methods that we can use to retrieve the actual result coming from the database. So this method returns a single result row. If your query has more than one row, it returns only the first row. So the result is returned as an object or null if it doesn't exist. So ito yung sample natin. Having the query, then we call the method row, and then we try to check, may laman ba yung row? If it has, then we try to echo yung title at saka yung content using yung arrow. Since we use yung row method. Row, arrow, then yung field name. To retrieve the title, or I mean the value of the title and the value of the content. Okay? Now, the next method is yung tinatawag nating row array. So this method is identical to row method except it returns an array or null if it doesn't exist. So yung query niya halos the same. The difference lang is that instead of using the row method, we use row array method. And then we also check it out here if may laman ba yung row. But in trying to access the specific value, instead of arrow, we use square bracket. That is because we already using the row array. Okay? So that's the only difference between them. Okay? Okay, so since we already know about the details of these two methods, let's try to go back to our controller. And let's try to update this code having this new code. Now, as you will notice, nagdagdag ako dito ng parameter, which is ID, which is ito yung ID na manggagaling sa list na nasa table. Now, once i-click nila yung view na button, it will pass an ID. Okay? So, if you can still remember yung code, ito yon. Ito yung code natin sa button, wherein we utilize yung site URL to produce the full URL, and we specify here yung URI. Okay? So if you can still remember yung mga segments, the first segment, URI segment, start with the class name, which is on this project, yung blog class natin. Then yung view, the second segment will be the method name. Then the third segment, the URI, so in this part, it is the ID, in which it will be the parameter of the method. Okay? Which is this one. Kaya nagkaroon tayo ng ID dito. Okay? Then, the next thing na ginawa natin is we try to load yung model para magkaroon tayo ng access na matawag yung getPost. Okay? Then, since yung getPost requires an ID, then kaya pinasa natin yung ID dito as an argument. Then after that, since there will be a return value, then we assign it to the data post variable, and yung data variable will be passed to the view for displaying. And now let's try to proceed to our template file. So we're going to update this one into something like this. So we try to check, may laman ba yung post? If may laman, then we're about to display yung title at saka yung content. Okay? So let's try to check this out. Okay. So ito yung list. If we try to click this one, yung view button, it should display yung content ng HTML heading, paragraph, and formatting. Let's try. So yun. So it works. Now let's try to go back to the list muna, and let's try other posts. It works also. So now we can able to retrieve the specific data based on the post it belongs. Once we click the view, it display yung specific post natin. Okay guys? So basically that's how we manage on selecting a specific data. Okay? Okay, so I think that's it guys. So I hope you learned something new today regarding our topic, which is about CodeIgniter models selecting specific data. Okay, so if you did, please click thumbs up and please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will be notified that there are new videos that we're going to upload. Okay, so just like I always say, just keep practicing and never stop learning. Thanks for watching guys, and goodbye for now.